stones and put it on their shoulder and take it on over on the dry land into Canaan. And after you get over there, right at the spot that parallels where you got these stones from, I want you to build a site right there and stack those 12 stones up, and those stones shall be a sign. God, what is the sign for? What are the stones for? These stones, when your children ask you, generations removed, when they ask you what these stones are for, let them know that you walked out into the middle of Jordan and it didn't overwhelm you. God, you came out of it and God brought you out. And that shall be a sign for generations to come. We came out and God did it. I don't know what it is that you came out of, but everybody in here came out of something. Some of y'all still in it, but those who came out of it, touch your neighbor and said, I was in something and God brought me out. God did it. Now there's a difference between a sign and a symbol. A symbol has a literal meaning, but then it has another meaning beyond the literal meaning. And the symbol is supposed to stand for something else. Now, the Christmas tree is a symbol. I don't know what it's supposed to represent, but somehow it's been tied to Christmas. But all a Christmas tree is a tree. An evergreen. And you take somebody during the months leading up to November, ever so often goes out into the field and shakes it up. Takes his shears and puts a point at the top. Some of them ain't good at it either. And then makes it fly on out to the bottom and then cut it off. You go and pay $30, $40, $50, $80, $120, $200 for a dead tree that has been renamed a Christmas tree. Sign is different. Sign gives you visible, tangible evidence of the intangible. That's what a sign does. A sign gives you visible, tangible evidence of the intangible. When I came into church this morning, there's an unlevel place on the parking lot. Did you see it? There was some water standing there. That's a sign. That's a sign that gives you evidence that is tangible of the intangible. You can't see the rain no more, but in the past, the present, and the future, there is tangible, visible evidence of rain. It's evidence that it has rained in the past. It's evidence that it's possible to be raining in the present. And it's evidence that you would be wise to have an umbrella because it might rain again in a few minutes. Tangible evidence. And so that, to the intangible. So these stones, if you will, were tangible evidence of the power of God. And brothers and sisters, let me just say parenthetically, we as African Americans do not appreciate what we have been through. I was watching Roots the other night and my grandson said, Nana, did they do all that? I said, son, they did that and far more. And we need to understand that how we came out and who brought us out. That's why history is so important. And there ought to be signs. Dr. Gibbs gave a history of slavery in D.C. at Kwanzaa the other night. And it was such a profound information that he shared. Do you not know that the largest plantation in Anacostia was right on this ground where you're sitting right now. And so this is a sign that the oppressor would like to have erased so that you would, because they try to say slavery wasn't all that predominant and preeminent in Washington, D.C., but right where you're sitting was the largest plantation in Anacostia, and that's a sign that the oppressor would want to erase when you go down to the wharf. The largest plantation in Washington, D.C. was down at the wharf. So when you go down to buy your crabs and your shrimp and your fish, you ought to give God a praise, because you ought to realize that right here on this ground where they are now selling seafood, this is where my ancestors were on the largest plantation in Washington, D.C., but we came out and God brought us out. There's another sign on Benning Road. Benning Road is named after the slave master who bought the plantation on the wharf from the largest slave owner in D.C., and his name was Benning. And the Benning Bridge that you cross over on Benning Road is named after the slave owner Benning. So every time you walk or ride across the Benning Bridge, you ought to say, we came out of it. God brought us out. In Brookland, named after the Brooklyn slave owner named Brookland. Right there across from the Brookland Tavern. You know the Brookland Tavern is the Brookland Mansion that still stands today. That was the Brookland Mansion, Plantation Mansion, and all of these are signs. We had Kwanzaa the other night. One of the most amazing things, we had a group of white women African drummers, and they played them too. Even spoke in Kiswahili and even played the drums as they played the drums. But that's a sign that we are not to let our posterity forget, because the drums were part of our emancipation, because there were talking drums, and the drums were used to send messages to tell fellow slaves when to run and where to go. One of my mentors, Dr. Howard Thurman, went over